Welcome in. Thanks so much for joining me. So, I'd like to discuss the importance of boredom in meditation. Some of you might be reading this title and or clicked on the video or listening to my podcast and wondering, um, why is boredom important in meditation? Often boredom is like the enemy. It's something we're struggling with because let's be honest, if we put actually some decent amount of time into our formal meditation practice, we are bored sometimes, right? It just happens. It's just part of it. Boredom is almost like a doorway we have to go through. It's almost inevitable, right? So much so, there's actually quite a lot of Buddhist teachers who have written on it. So I'd like to start with an excerpt from a talk or a writing of a well-known Buddhist teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And I find him to be quite poignant and powerful on many, many topics. But he's also one of the Buddhist teachers who talks quite a bit about boredom, even so much as to develop his own term he calls cool boredom. So what I'm going to read you is an excerpt on cool boredom from him. So he says, quote, "Mindfulness of breathing is a way of creating obstacles to subconscious dreams and mental activities. The technique of mindfulness of breathing should provide obstacles. It is a nuisance that you have to keep hastening back to the breath. However, unless you're able to do that efficiently, you will not get properly bored. And if you do not get properly bored, you will not be in tune with the power of the practice. Everything may be happening very smoothly on the surface level, but you are not in tune with the magic of meditation practice or the spiritual energy of the lineage. Boredom is important because boredom is anti-credential, anti-entertainment, and as we develop greater psychological sophistication, we begin to appreciate such boredom. It becomes cool and refreshing like a mountain river. That very real and genuine boredom, or cool boredom, plays an extremely important role. In fact, we could quite simply say that the barometer of our accomplishment in meditation practice is how much boredom we create for ourselves. Cool boredom is rather light boredom. It has its uneasy quality, but at the same time, it is not a big deal. Cool boredom is simply another expression of the experience of well-being. Cool boredom is like what mountains experience. With cool boredom, thought processes become less entertaining. They become transparent. Cool boredom is hopelessness at its most absolute level, end quote. Wow. The last part of that is the part that always hits me because I've read this a few times just preparing before sharing this with you. Cool boredom is hopelessness at its most absolute level. Anyways, claiming that I can unpack that in any way would be false. I often find his writing and teachings to just be so evocative of many things. But there's a few things in there that I heard that I can really relate to. And the first one is this sense of non-entertainment, or he calls it anti-entertainment. And this is a big one because often when we sit down and meditate, even those of us who are more long-term practitioners, we immediately can see we are seeking entertainment, right? The thinking mind is just spinning, spinning, spinning. And what's the thinking mind trying to do? It's trying to entertain itself, right? So as Mingyur Rinpoche often says, sometimes in order to work with that monkey mind, we give the monkey something to do, right? We give the thinking mind something to do, which in some cases is watch the breath. In some other cases is watch sound. In other cases, just be present and that's it, right? So there's many ways we can work with it, and there's many things to give the monkey mind something to do. But either way, the purpose of that is to train an anti-entertainment, that we don't have to be entertained all the time, that we don't need something going on, or we don't need to be doing something all the time. I find this to be one of the most precious and hidden benefits of meditation practice because we get so focused on an experience. I want to be calm. I want to be sort of more insightful, blah, blah, blah. But actually, that can even disconnect us from the present moment because we're seeking something else than we're experiencing. So a lot of what I've found in meditation over the years, it's really the practice of being, the practice of essentially doing nothing and just learning to be with consciousness as it is, learning to be with mind as it is, which as many of you know, who are meditators who watch my content regularly, that is really hard. That is not easy. And so these teachings on working with boredom and developing cool boredom, which he's saying that's a positive kind of boredom. He said it's like a mountain, right? It's what does he say here? Cool boredom is like what mountains experience, right? Just being is that's how, just reflecting on that, that's what that means to me, just being. And so cool boredom is something we want. The opposite of cool boredom is that mind that's dissatisfied, the mind that is clinging to something else, the mind that just refuses to be in the present moment and is really struggling to be there, which I experience a lot. So I'm sure you also experience a lot. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's sort of like this is the practice. We wouldn't need to meditate if we already could just be with consciousness as it is. So we meditate to practice that. Now, of course, some of you out there might be listening and say, well, I meditate to, work with my anxiety or to feel more relaxed or calm. That's all fine. But that goal has a limit. It has an end, meaning you can get that if you want. You can do that. And I encourage it to a certain degree. And yet, there's this other mode. There's this deeper path where we can eventually take our meditation into knowing the mind, right? Which I think has a lot more way to go, right? It's limitless, actually. And so if we're doing that and we're working with knowing the mind, we're working with um, leaving the mind as it is, essentially, we're going to encounter our boredom. We're going to encounter our anxiousness around that, shifting, trying to entertain ourselves, right? Working with a thinking mind that, as I said, is constantly spinning and trying to find something to do or someone to be, right? So try this approach of cool boredom, and you can't really insert it. You can't will it in. It's just the approach of practicing leaving the mind as it is. Let thoughts be what they are. And as I've said before in some other instructions or guided meditations, thoughts are actually not the problem in meditation. It's really thinking that is the issue. But we also don't want to demonize it, right? When thinking has its place, thinking is very useful. But when it's involuntary, when we're sort of being led around by the monkey mind, that can be a problem, right? And that's one thing that meditation really helps with. And so out of this cool boredom, I find personally when I'm able to embody that, which is not a ton, but when I'm able to, there's a deep sense of contentment. There's also a deep sense of just relationship to life and compassion to life. Because compassion is being present. Compassion is being open to life in not just the moments that are pleasant and ideal, but also those that are unpleasant and that we would prefer not to have. And so all these things connect, the practice of being with the mind as it is, just being present and open to any given moment or situation helps us to evoke compassion. And eventually it will help us to evoke non-dual wisdom if we pursue it enough. So that's about it. I just wanted to share some thoughts on this. I encourage you to go check out Trungpa Rinpoche's writings. They're really incredible on this. You could also just search for it and find, what books those are in, because they're in several different books of his. And as always, feel free to reach out. I'm kind of curious what you all think, if you're struggling with boredom and if this is helpful. Let me know. Please comment if you're watching on YouTube, or feel free to reach out to me on my website, scotttusa.com, if you're listening to the audio podcast. Thanks so much, everyone. Wishing you well, wishing you deep and fulfilling practice. Take care.